Hey, what's going on YouTube? A Riveted Rail fan here, and today I wanted to make a video about Illinois Central Railroad 2613, my personal favorite retired excursion locomotive. Now, it's not a very talked about engine, and I don't think it's known very well, so I'm hoping this will boost the popularity of it. It's a really cool steam locomotive in my opinion. I mean, obviously, but anyway. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe, and a comment saying if you did. It would really help, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, once again, leave a like, leave a comment, because I'd really like to do more like this in the future. Alright, so let's roll. The year is 1926. The Illinois Central Railroad has had some problems finding a new ideal locomotive to pull fast, heavy trains, but that is soon about to change. The Illinois Central finds the ideal locomotive, the 482 Mountain type, a locomotive they had already ordered in 1923 and had just finished delivery in 1926 that year. They had ordered 482s 2400 to 2414 and 2440 to 2459 from Alco Locomotive Works, or American Locomotive Work Company, while 2415 and 2439 were built by Lima Locomotive Works. At least that is what I took from the research I did. Unfortunately, the traffic was picking back up from the Great Depression, and they needed more freight engines. They turned to Paducah to rebuild their Central class locomotives. The Centrals were known on other roads as the Santa Fe type. The railroads would design the 2500 class 482 Mountain steam locomotives, taking 56 of their Central type locomotives and reinforcing their boilers, then laying them on a new frame. This new frame would be a single casting that included the cylinders and air pump reservoir. The first one completed was Illinois Central Railroad 2500, which before rebuild was IC 2953. 2500 was the only one of their rebuilds to have a standard BK stoker. The rest would be delivered over the next 5 years, and these new mountains had duplex stokers, have 70-inch diameter drivers, could handle up to 240 psi, weighed 629,000 pounds, and had 78,686 pounds of tractive effort. They even had the new at the time Timken roller bearings. If you want to know more about those, check out High Iron's video on the company and the special locomotive they owned. Link in the description. Anyways, these locomotives were such great successes that the Illinois Central ordered 20 more to be built from scratch by Paducah. These would be the 2600 class, some of the largest mountain types ever built. All of them would have a standard BK stoker and were almost identical to the 2500s, so they had the same engine beds and such. The first 10 used the normal web spoke drivers, while the rest used box-pock disc drivers. The large driving wheels would be 70 inches in diameter. The engines had 78,540 pounds of tractive effort and were more powerful than the 2500s. The boiler pressure could go up to 275 psi, and they weighed 794,393 pounds. Tender could hold 26 liters of coal and 22,000 gallons of water. After having a relatively normal working life, the steam locomotives would be put in dead lines, awaiting scrapping. They were replaced by the new diesel locomotives, which rail fans would call it dieselization. While a few of the ICRR steam locomotives were saved, none of the 2600s were. But in 1959, things would turn around for the 2600 class. The Louisville and Nashville Railroad's 100th anniversary of its first train between its two namesake cities was swiftly approaching, and with no serviceable steam locomotives of their own, they would turn to the IC for help. They asked if they could borrow one of their engines to pull the special train, and the IC agreed. Management would look through the deadlines and decided what locomotive would be the best to use. They found their locomotive sitting in Centralia, Illinois, ICRR 482 Mountain number 2613. It was pulled away and taken to get a boiler wash and repaint. When it was ready, it had some white striping on its side that no other IC steamer had had before. After being delivered to the L&N, it was completely prepared to pull the excursion. Its first trip would be on October 24th, 1959. Over its ICRR lettering read a sign reading, L&N First Train Centennial. The train performed perfectly fine until it had arrived in Gallatin, Tennessee, where it would run out of coal. Now, from some reports, people on board had noticed that the L&N purposefully didn't put enough coal into the tender. They had also reported that there had been some L&N Electromotive Division E8s that had suspiciously been shadowing the train the entire trip from Louisville. Reports state that L&N did this to prove how unreliable steam was and let new diesels take the glory for delivering the train to Nashville. Some of the L&N managers even suggested leaving 2613 in a siding and returning for it later, but ultimately it was towed the rest of the way to Nashville. The tender was refilled, and strangely enough, it returned to Louisville flawlessly. Upon its return to the ICRR, it and a few other steam engines were fired up once more for a wintertime rush of coal. After the traffic died down and IC had received 15 new EMD GP18s, the 2613 was put back on the deadline. Then, on May 14th, 1960, it was returned to service once more for the ICRR's Farewell to Steam excursion. Rail fans who paid to go would get to tour the Paducah Roundhouse, as well as watch 2613 get serviced, visit the scrapyard behind the shop, where most of the Illinois Central steam locomotives had been scrapped at that point, and got to see ICRR 2102 Decapod 2739 in steam, which had been fired up to take over the train in case something happened to 2613 during its excursion. There was no need for it, however, as the 2613 once again performed perfectly. Rail fans got to take photos due to multiple photo run-bys.
Riding on the city of New Orleans, Illinois Central, Monday morning rail. 15 cars and 15 restless riders, 3 conductors, 25 sacks of mail. All along the southbound Odyssey, the train pulls out at Kankakee and rolls along past houses, farms, and fields, passing trains that have no name, and freight yards full of old black men, and the graveyards of the rusted automobiles. Good morning, America, how are you? Said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Dealing card games.
After the trip, it sat in Paducah until October 2nd, 1960, pulling one last short excursion train. Upon finishing the trip, it was returned to the deadline. Members of the newly formed Kentucky Railway Museum tried to save 2613 and was told they would have to pay the scrap price. See, the chairman of the Illinois Central at that time preferred the engines to be scrapped rather than neglected, which I kind of understand. My theory is that getting the places to pay for the scrap price is a test, kind of, to show that they were devoted and they had the money to take care of the equipment long into the future. That scrap price, though, was $8,000, and the organization was unable to raise the scrap value, unfortunately. The 2613 sat in Paducah a while longer before ultimately being scrapped. While 2613 didn't survive, it has not been forgotten, especially in Paducah, Kentucky. The Kentucky Railway Museum was able to purchase 2613's headlight and number plate, which is still there today. A mural and 2 historical markers were painted along the riverside in honor of 2613. 2613 is just one of those engines that, even though it has a very good bit of excursion history and hung on for so long, it was not able to be saved in the long run. That's not exactly where the story ends, though. On September 19th, 1992, Nickel Plate Road 765 came down to Kentucky to run on the Illinois Central, and it went back north on October 2nd, 1992, the very same day that Illinois Central 2613 made its last run 32 years earlier. Also worth noting that 2 of the 2500 class, the 2600's predecessor, survived into preservation. That would be Illinois Central 2542 in Macomb, Mississippi, and Illinois Central 2500, first of the 2500 class, in Centralia, Illinois.